A party divided, Taiwan's main opposition struggles to unite around its presidential candidate. Taiwan's foreign minister hopes to put the country under the U.S. nuclear umbrella.
This may look like the Mediterranean, but it's actually an outlying island of Taiwan in viewing distance of China. We'll have more in today's show.
Plus, the death of a turtle sparks debate around abandoned fishing gear and our eating habits. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. Taiwan's main opposition presidential candidate Hou Yu-ih says he'll meet with lawmakers from his party, the Kuomintang, next week. It's a push to unite the KMT before January's crucial election. But with rifts over how Hou was picked, some members say they might not make the date. Prominent lawmaker Jessica Chen backed Foxconn founder Terry Guo for the KMT nomination before it went to Hou. She says she'll be busy when Hou visits next week. Instead, Chen says she'll host Ke Wen-je, Hou's presidential rival in her home district of Jinmen.
3、4月的时候，柯文哲市长就已经说要去金门了，他去2天还要过夜，所以柯市长要来拜访我是很早就安排的。
In the final part of TaiwanPlus' series, talking to party insiders about their strategies for next year's presidential election, Sam Hui spoke to Tony Lin, the head of the opposition Kuomintang or KMT's Culture Committee, to discuss how their candidate Hou Yu-ih plans to win.
What are the strengths and weaknesses of the KMT's candidate, Mayor Hou Yu-ih?
Mayor Hou is a son of a street vendor at a local fresh market in Jai County. His father, Ho Chi Minh, has fought against the Communist Party during the Civil War period. And being grown up in the local rural area of Taiwan, he knows the average people and he knows what the average people want. I have been working with Mayor Hou for quite some time in the past. To me, he's a very pragmatic person, problem-solving oriented career law enforcement personnel. In his own word, he has been fighting for the security of Taiwan. So I think in the upcoming presidential election, I think most of the voters, if not all, can relate to him in one way or the other.
What is the strategy for KMT to win 2024's presidential election?
We believe the ruling party, DPP, is advocating the idea of direct confrontation or direct conflict. We, on the other hand, we are really supporting peace strategy, as we think we need to get ready to defend ourselves as a prerequisite. And then we engage in dialogues with all the people to avoid the use of military, to avoid a direct confrontation. And I think that basic doctrine is in line with all the major powers, including the One China policy of the United States and all the recent communique of G7. And I think we, as a party, we encourage, of course, direct dialogue, which has been regarded by DPP as so-called selling Taiwan.
This year's election seems to be a three-way race between the KMT, DPP, and TPP. So who will be Hou Yu-ih's biggest challenger, Lai Ching-te or Ke Wen-je?
To me, I think it's still too early to call what the race will be like in the following month. It is still simply too early to call. Our basic principle is we will try all the efforts to unite our partners or friends or allies that call for a change in Taiwan. We will unite all the powers because most people here, most people in Taiwan, we call for a change. And the KMT, we are going to unite all the powers.
That was Tony Ling, the head of the opposition KMT's Culture and Communications Committee, speaking to our reporter Sam Hui. Rapid advances in artificial intelligence pose an ever greater risk to the spread of misinformation, particularly when it comes to elections. Taiwan is no stranger to information warfare, having to fend off thousands of cyber attacks on a regular basis. But with a presidential election on the way, AI could bring a host of new threats to Taiwan's democratic process. Joyce Zeng reports.
Earlier this week, this image appeared on Twitter. It claimed to show the aftermath of a huge explosion near the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Almost immediately, multiple accounts, including some posing as news outlets, began spreading the photo across the platform. The thing is, this image is completely fake. Although the U.S. authorities quickly debunked the picture, it had very real-world effects, making waves on social media and causing the U.S. stock market to momentarily plummet. You may think deepfakes are as easy to spot as any other fake image, but what happens when artificial intelligence advances to a point where you're not so sure anymore? Generative AI is the branch of artificial intelligence that can produce its own content, whether that's text, images, or even sound and video. The most well-known example of this is ChatGPT, a chatbot from American tech lab OpenAI, which can replicate human-like conversations. At a hearing with the United States Congress this month, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman made a solemn warning about this type of tech. His concerns matched those of many others, that AI misinformation could be used to manipulate large numbers of people.
Given that we're going to face an election next year and these models are getting better, I think this is a significant area of concern.
One country which recently saw deepfakes taint its democratic process is Turkey. Tensions rose in the lead-up to Turkey's May elections after its incumbent president Recep Tayyip Erdogan cited a doctored video at a rally which appeared to show his main rival with a Kurdish militant chief. Meanwhile, in Taiwan, the run-up to next year's presidential elections is well underway, with the candidates for the country's main political parties already hitting the campaign trail. But the country is extremely vulnerable to cyber aggression, particularly from China, which considers Taiwan as part of its territory. Taiwan reportedly battles more than 20 million cyber attacks a month, the majority of which are thought to come from China. And using AI-generative deepfakes could give these cyber attackers even more ammunition.
有心利用这样子的事件来攻击台湾的话，那么合理的判断是它会搭配其他的威胁手段，搭配假错讯息的攻势。
Taiwan has already amended its law to make creating and distributing computer-generated fake images and audio a crime. But it still faces the dilemma of how to regulate advancing AI technology. It must now strike a balance between allowing users free access to information tools while also keeping dangerous fabrications from popping up. As the country gets ready to choose its next president, the stakes for being able to discern what is real and what's not just got even higher. Klein Wang and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
China is willing to take its cooperation with Russia to a new level. That's according to the country's premier Li Qiang. Li met with Russia's Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin in Beijing on Wednesday. Mishustin is the highest-ranking visitor from the Kremlin since Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine last year. China says it's staying neutral in the conflict. It has put forward a peace plan and offered to act as mediator. At the meeting, Premier Li said China is ready to promote pragmatic cooperation in various fields. He did not give more details. Taiwan's armed forces are holding joint drills in the south and east of the country. The exercises are aimed at enhancing coordination between the Army, Navy, and Air Force. In southern Taiwan, helicopters and ground troops were training to support one another, while in the east, the Navy Marine Corps surveyed areas of the coast known as Red Beaches. Defense officials are working to bulk up defenses around these beaches, which are thought to be possible landing sites for a Chinese invasion. The drills will last for 5 days. They're taking place 2 months before Taiwan is due to hold its largest war games, the Hanguang exercises, in July. The U.S. Air Force has given a new reason for delaying delivery of new F-16V fighter jets to Taiwan. A Bloomberg report says the U.S. cited complex developmental challenges for the wait. The delay was previously blamed on COVID-related supply chain issues. The statement did not give details about the technical issues, but it said Taiwan, the U.S. government, and Lockheed Martin are working to shorten the delay. Another country that ordered the jets, Bahrain, has already received some of its fighters. The Bloomberg report quotes an aviation consultant who says this is why he thinks there could be a Taiwan-specific equipment issue. The F-16V is a crucial part of Taiwan's defense plan, and the first batch was meant to arrive by the end of this year. The $8 billion order is now expected to be fulfilled by 2026. Taiwan's foreign minister says he's asked the U.S. to add Taiwan to its so-called nuclear umbrella. This is a list of countries the U.S. promises to protect against a nuclear attack. But is it a realistic proposal? John Van Trieste finds out.
It's a nightmare scenario for Taiwan, a nuclear attack from China aimed at getting the island to surrender. China claims Taiwan as part of its territory and has vowed to use force to take it if needed. And China's nuclear arsenal is growing. By 2035, it's expected to have 1,500 nuclear weapons. That's why Taiwan's foreign minister Joseph Wu says deterrence is key. He's asked the U.S. to add Taiwan to its nuclear umbrella. It's a list of countries the U.S. tries to shield from nuclear attack. The idea is that if any of them are bombed, the U.S. will retaliate against the aggressor with its own nuclear strike. Some lawmakers offered conditional support for the idea.
包含总统跟这个外交部、国防部以及相关的国安单位以及团队，应该要就台湾人民总体的利益为最高的前提来做一个妥适的规划。
The U.S. has recently shown its commitment to other countries already under its nuclear umbrella. In April, Washington told South Korea a nuclear strike on the North is on the table if Seoul is attacked. And during last week's G7 summit, the U.S. sent a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to drill with Japanese warships. Some at Taipei think tank, the Institute for National Defense and Security Research, say it would be good for Taiwan to be included too.
将来台海发生冲突的时候，只要美国是要来介入所谓的台海军事冲突，核武绝对是中国啊，哈，可以最后手上最后的一张王牌。
However, others at the same think tank believe the U.S. is unlikely to agree. And despite the rhetoric coming from Taiwanese politicians, it's highly unlikely China would opt to use nuclear weapons on a land it claims as already its territory. They also say that the U.S. is unlikely to overtly say how it would defend Taiwan from an attack.
在核子武器的这个嚇阻的部分，我想这个议题这个 issue， 我想就不用太过去仔细的说明，这个就比较像是一个默契了。
Meaning that for the foreseeable future, Taiwan's defense will have to rely on more conventional weapons. Eason Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan says it is continuing to press Japan to apologize and offer compensation to so-called comfort women and their families. Taiwan's last known survivor of Japanese wartime sexual slavery died earlier this month, aged 92. The Imperial Japanese Army forcefully recruited more than 2,000 Taiwanese women to work in military brothels before and during World War II. Overall, an estimated 200,000 women were conscripted from territories occupied by Japan, chiefly Korea, China, and Southeast Asia. Japan's government has at times denied or downplayed the abuses. At other times, it has acknowledged them. Taiwan's foreign ministry says the use of comfort women is a wound in human history. Authorities found a migrant caregiver badly beaten and forced to work 21.5 hours every day. But as Bing Wang reports, this is not an isolated incident.
人已经打成这样了，你看，我要带去验伤啊！这个，你们太过分了，太可恶了。
This video shows a broker reprimanding a family in Taichung for mistreating a migrant worker. They're accused of beating a caregiver hired to tend to their debilitated son. She says she was forced to work more than 20 hours a day. Authorities are investigating the family, who also allegedly confiscated the migrant worker's passport and phone, restricting her freedom.
侯姓被告等3人涉犯人口贩运防治法之意图盈利、以强暴、胁迫、恐吓、拘禁、监控等方法，使人从事劳动与报酬显不相当之工作罪、刑法之伤害罪、剥夺他人行动自由罪、恐吓维安罪等罪嫌明确，提起公诉。
The Taiwan Association for Human Rights said this is not an isolated case, but incidents like these have a very low conviction rate.
家庭看护工、家事劳工纳入劳基法，完整的保障，还是有一个家事服务法、一个专法来保障，基本上都是目前可以去走的方向。
Taiwan is an aging society, and many families are hiring more migrant workers to take care of their elders. There are some 700,000 migrant workers in the country, and they are essential to the economy. They not only work as caregivers, but also in factories and dangerous fishery jobs. The Labor Ministry hopes to attract at least 80,000 more migrants. But rights activists say the government should also focus on safeguarding the workers' well-being while in Taiwan. Ricky and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
For more on the mistreatment facing migrant workers in the country, Bing Wong spoke to Hou Yu-ih, Executive Director of Amnesty International Taiwan.
Are migrant workers being mistreated a structural issue?
Yeah, it's a serious issue. It's not only mentioned in the United States human trafficking report every year, but also raised by the EU-Taiwan Human Rights Dialogue, many UN human rights conventions review in the past years.
Why do you think there's such treatment against migrant workers in Taiwan?
I think it's also maybe based on the racial discrimination, and also maybe the employee lack of the labor offenses. They didn't respect the basic rights of these migrant workers, and also because the migrant workers, they didn't protected by our domestic labor law as well.
So how do you think the problem can be solved?
I think many NGOs in Taiwan request the Taiwanese government to ask the domestic worker could be applied into our domestic law, or they can have a special legal protection by set up a special regulations to protect the domestic workers' basic rights. But it's already be demanded by the NGOs for years, but we still see that the Taiwanese government still refuse to take the step to implement the protection to migrant workers. Yeah.
That was Bing Wong speaking to Hou Yu-ih, the Executive Director of Amnesty International Taiwan. The number of people in Taiwan who support same-sex marriage in the country has grown by over 25% in fewer than 5 years. It's a figure which has seen a major uptick since the country legalized the right for same-sex couples to marry 4 years ago. According to an annual government survey, over 62.6% of Taiwan's public now support same-sex marriage. This is compared to fewer than 37.5% of those who were surveyed in 2018. May 24th marks the 4th year anniversary since Taiwan became the first country in Asia to officially recognize same-sex marriage. Coming up, how do penguins find a love match? Stay tuned to find out.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app and follow us on social media.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. All this week on TaiwanPlus News, we've been bringing you on a journey to Taiwan's outlying islands of Matsu. Today, in part 3 of our series, Where's Matsu's County Chief Taking Us?, Andrew Ryan goes island hopping to a place that looks surprisingly like Greece.
Stone houses line the slopes, looking out over a curved bay and a small beach below. They feature high, narrow windows cut into the granite like eyes looking out at the sea. You'd be forgiven for thinking we'd left Taiwan.
有人称它为亚洲的地中海，在那边很悠闲的喝杯咖啡，看看对岸的我们的龟岛，再看看对岸的环旗，就在遥遥之间，就近在咫尺。
This is Qinbi, a little fishing village about 15 kilometers off the coast of China. People have been living here since the 13th century. But when the fishing industry fell into decline in the 1970s, most of the residents moved to the main island of Taiwan in search of work. After they opened the islands to tourism in the mid-90s, Qinbi experienced a renaissance. Today, it's one of the hottest destinations in Matsu. Most of the homes are now guest houses. One of the owners decided to move here the first time she laid eyes on the village.
很安静，然后就是没有台北的嘈杂。早上有早上的宁静美，黄昏有黄昏的夕阳美，晚上有深层的夜景美，所以每个时段有每个时段的美。
So how do you transform a ghost town with just 2 families into one of the most popular destinations in Matsu? The county chief says it's a delicate balance.
芹壁啊，是我们花费好多的心力把它保存起来。我们为了保护这片美景，我们特别定的办法叫做聚落保存区，在里面生活的，在里面的建筑都需要受到聚落保存相关的规定的限制。
Strict regulations have helped preserve the village of Qinbi like a time capsule. Everywhere you turn, there are signs from Matsu's Cold War past, like this one, Take Back the Mainland, and Long Live Chiang Kai-shek. Just up the road, an even starker reminder of the tensions of 40 years ago. This is one of 5 stations that Taiwan set up to broadcast propaganda directly to people across these waters in China. Now, when it was set up in 1979, it was the biggest of its kind in the region. There are 48 holes that used to contain speakers, but today, this is no longer in use. It's an interesting time to visit Matsu, with cross-strait tensions threatening to boil over again. But the county chief is unfazed.
会紧张是你们外国人，我们一点都不紧张。为什么不紧张？我们从小在这边长大，在战地政务时期，我们每天晚上都要躲防空洞，那个日子我们经过了。
He says that people are mentally prepared, and it helps that both sides have better weapons than they did in the past.
现在一个飞弹就飞越过马祖了，他不可能在战略上先打马祖再打台湾，所以说马祖相对的是安全。
In many ways, the people of Matsu are like the buildings of Qinbi. They've seen a lot, and they'll remain steadfast for centuries to come, no matter which way the political winds blow. Alex Chen, Devin Tsai, Peachy Drong, and Andrew Ryan for TaiwanPlus. Coming up in part 4 of our trip, we take a bite out of Matsu, sampling creative concoctions like coffee and chocolate flavored with locally made liquor.
Join us every day this week for a fresh episode of our series, Where is Matsu's County Chief Taking Us? If you love marine wildlife, you might want to think about looking away. A dead sea turtle caught in fishing gear near the reef of Taiwan's Pingtung Islands has raised questions about the best way to reduce the global problem of abandoned fishing nets. Sally Jensen reports.
Amid the murky blue waters, a body appears. Hovering above the reef, the carcass of a sea turtle. The fine net that trapped this turtle is one commonly used to catch the fish that we eat. The tragic scene has reignited debate around discarded fishing equipment in Taiwan's waters.
一层一层的堆叠上去，那所以基本上所有的生物是完全逃无可逃。多层刺网，我先进，我应该优先退场。第二个，我在礁岩区，我一定要优先退场，因为礁岩区是它网子一放下去，常常一个海流过来，它就被礁岩卡住。
Known as ghost gear, abandoned fishing equipment is a major killer to turtles and other marine wildlife. It makes up most of the large plastic pollution in the oceans, according to Greenpeace. As an island country, Taiwan relies heavily on its fisheries industry. Authorities say they are working on educating fishers to prevent discarded ghost gear.
我们过去采取去间接的方式啦，那未来部分要沟通的对象会蛮多的，那我们会逐一的来做一些沟通，那取得一些平衡。
However, facing the prospect of fines, Taiwan's fishers are not happy about the ever-increasing restrictions on their livelihoods.
政府伊都要禁，你没有配合的话，抓到也是会罚，反常加减那呗。
But as global demand for seafood is rising ever higher, the world is also facing ocean depletion and mass marine die-off. In order to stop ghost gear and save turtles, people may need to think more about how their food habits are taking a toll on nature. James Lin and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Love is in the air for the penguins at Pingtung Aquarium in southern Taiwan. The enclosure is gearing up for the penguins' breeding seasons in July. Caretakers have been setting the scene with annual health checks for the birds and building a small pebble mountain. Pebbles are used as a type of love token between mating penguins. Male penguins will choose a pebble to present to their mate in hopes of starting a family. If accepted, the pebble will then become a part of the couple's nest. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally today, we leave you with images of the most iconic looks from this year's Met Gala, but now with pet models. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care and see you next time.